Hey everybody, welcome to the 9to5Mac Happy Hour. We are back, we are strong, we had a little bit of a hiatus, but now we are going to have content for you every Friday. We're going to be having promo codes, special deals, great developer interviews, interviewers with your favorite 9to5Mac staffers, and even more content. So today we're actually going to have some great interviews with Dan of 9to5toys.com, an anonymous developer talking about their transition to iOS 7, and we're also going to talk to Mark about his iWatch article, which has just been blowing up on the internet. There's great news, but first, my name is Scott, and I'm going to be your host for the 9to5Mac Happy Hour, and first up, we're going to have our segment with Dan of 9to5toys.com. All right, welcome to the 9to5 Toys section of our podcast. So we have with us Dan DaSilva, or also known as Danny Ocean. So let's actually, what is 9to5 Toys? There's a lot of people that have kind of seen it on the 9to5Mac website, but kind of give us an introduction of what you do or what the whole entire website does.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a sister site to 9to5Mac and 9to5 Google. What we try and do is kind of complement the news, gear, and products that they're talking about on those other websites, and kind of help them make them more affordable and make them attainable for everybody to get into. We know lots of the tech gear that's out these days is great, but it's also expensive too. So we're just trying to help people find the best deals, best value, best places to spend their money.
I like it. Yeah, so I've seen lots of posts that have also kind of gotten posted as well onto 9to5Mac, so it's kind of cool to see that when I'm looking for a hard drive, I can just pop onto the website and be able to get one for a really good discount.
Yeah, we actually do that every day at 6 p.m. What it's called is the 9to5 Toys Last Call. And what we do is round up the best deals of the day. Just because lots of the ones that we feature over on 9to5 Toys are just 24-hour sales and, even less depending on demand. So we like to round them up at the end of the day, kind of give everybody a fair shot at them to, cash in on the deals that they were looking at.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to get the deals out there for everybody.
Yeah, it's insane how some of those lightning deals, they're up for an hour, and then I usually catch them like 5 minutes after, and I'm like, come on.
Yeah,
like
those the
deals.
Amazon lightning deals, they're scheduled for a couple hours or until they sell out. But then you even have, great deals that kick off that kind of go viral. They hit all the deal networks. People start talking about them, sharing them with their friends, and then all of a sudden they're just gone.
Yeah.
They may have been originally scheduled to last a couple days, but it was so hot, it goes viral, and then that's the end of that.
Huh. Well, one thing that I've been getting tons and tons of emails about is the current MacBook Pro situation. So I myself, I feel like when the new ones are going to come out, I'm definitely going to be purchasing them. But at the same time, it kind of seems like there's been some really awesome deals on MacBook Airs or even, last generation MacBook Pros. So kind of give us some advice in terms of what you think people should do or kind of how they can approach the current MacBook Pro situation.
Yeah, it's tough with Apple products. Historically, people usually assume that they're not discounted, and you don't even ever see Apple stores putting up sale banners or anything like that. So usually the best way to get value out of an Apple product is to buy early. That same technology is going to be the same price throughout the lifespan of that item. So the earlier you buy, the longer you're going to get the new technologies. So that's why we usually recommend, if you need a computer at this current time, to jump in on the new MacBook Air, which features, as you know, the Haswell processors, which give awesome speeds and the crazy battery life.
And the freaking awesome 802.11 AC, which I can't wait to have an actual MacBook Pro that has that. And if I probably at that time, I'm of course going to get the Airport Extreme that has that as well. So is that something like, actually, what kind of computer are you using?
I'm on the new MacBook Air. I was using a 15-inch MacBook Pro from 2011, and I was waiting to upgrade. I actually got to the point, and I was wavering between the Retina MacBook Pro and the MacBook Air, but then once they introduced the new Air at WWDC, I jumped on that. Number one, like you said, for the AC in it, but also from a value standpoint where I'm looking at it as an investment, and 2 years down the road maybe so, when I want to go to resell this, this is going to have the newest technology in it that I was able to buy at this current time. And then people who are looking to jump in for back-to-school time coming up, as you know, Apple kicked off their back-to-school program. That's not always the best deal, depending on your situation. You're going to get the educational discount off the top of the computer,
Hmm.
which ranges from about $50 to $100. But then you also get the $100 iTunes gift card, or 50 for a phone or pad. Um, but the problem is you're going to be paying sales tax on that in most locations, whereas a lot of online retailers at the time of purchase, you aren't charged sales tax, which is a plus. And then on top of that, a lot of the retailers have actually been matching Apple's educational pricing. So Best Buy started the trend. They started chopping $50 off the new MacBook Air 11-inch and 13-inch. And then Amazon followed suit. And then now I believe all major retailers online, B&H, Amazon, Mac Mall, are all offering that discount. But it goes up to about $54. And then on top of that, like I said, there's potential tax savings at time of purchase, depending on your location and country of origin, things like that.
Hmm. So did you buy a router with 802.11 AC as well?
I did not, because I'm cheap and have none, because I have the cheaper service here in my house.
Hmm.
So even if I got an AC router, I wouldn't see too much of a performance boost, because I think N is already faster than the connection coming into my house.
Yeah, well, I think for me that's the same case as well. But the biggest thing is for computer to computer connections.
Yep.
So for AirDrop or for just transferring files to the Airport Express, just a hard drive that's connected to the Extreme or anything else like that. So that's definitely where I see the benefits to it, and that's where I'm excited to see it really roll out to more devices.
Yeah, with Wi-Fi sync, or maybe a time machine backup to a time capsule.
Yeah, that's gonna be fast.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah, that we've actually seen not too many discounts so far on the new Extreme and time capsule.
Mm.
There are some retailers online who are just knocking about $5 to $10 off it.
Yeah.
So if you need one, you can jump in, but we haven't seen too many discounts on them, and they're not traditionally discounted that often. Usually when you get into the mid lifespan of those, you can find some great deals on refurbs. I remember one deal that sticks out in my head. We had the Airport Extreme. I think it goes for $179. The old one did,
Mhm.
and Best Buy was selling a refurbished one for $95.
Wow.
They did that twice, and I mean that's a pretty great deal. That's a couple bucks underneath an Airport Express.
Yeah, exactly. Well, give us a kind of an idea of some of the hot deals that are running on the site right now.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it before. The MacBook Air seeing their first, major price discount there at $50 to $54, depending on the model. So you can get one now starting at just $950, which is a great entry level standpoint. We saw some great Bluetooth speakers yesterday. We generally see the Jawbone Jambox for around $90, coming in bulk packaging, non-retail. But that's a great way to jump in on those that are traditionally not discounted that often. Then we also have lots of app and digital game deals. Steam kicked off their summer sale last week. So all the gamers out there have been cashing in on that. But then Amazon followed suit, and they matched most of those prices from Steam. And then they bumped it up even just a bit more by offering a one-time 15% discount on one of the titles. So if you kind of played it right and picked the most expensive title you were looking at, you could save a couple extra bucks over Steam there.
Huh. So do you have any kind of give us some idea of do you have non-tech deals, or is it all just kind of tech gear?
Yeah, every now and then we kind of pepper in some non-tech gear, because we know hopefully that our readers and podcast people out there are doing something other than hanging out in their office on their Apple gear.
I don't know about that.
So
I don't know. I think that's exactly what I'm doing all the time. So
we had a Gerber knife, which I'm sure most people are familiar with that brand name.
Are you saying Gurman knife, like Mark Gurman knife? Or is that...
Oh, no, Gerber.
Close enough.
Not like the baby company either.
That'd be really scary if they started selling knives, actually.
So they have a Bear Grylls product line. Remember the guy from I think it was the History Channel? Yeah, so they have his product line. And we had a knife over there. It was $10 with free shipping. It was like a 1/2-inch serrated blade. Really great reviews on Amazon, and it was about 50% off. And as always, we always recommend all of our readers jump in on the Amazon Prime, just because it's such a great buy.
Yeah.
and lots of the best prices we see on products are on Amazon, so they can really take advantage and get the full value of that membership.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Dan, and we'll have you on every week to kind of give us some tips into kind of the best way to maybe look into and find tips, other than, of course, going to 9to5toys.com. But also maybe you can kind of tease some of the upcoming deals or some of the deals that you're currently running on the site.
Sure, I don't want to give away too much, Got the competition trolling on our podcast there. Got to keep it down.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You got it. Have a good one.
Hey everyone, this is Scott again. Now, before we get into the interview with our anonymous developer, I actually wanted to mention a couple great deals for you. So first of all, if you actually look up the Mac Video Converter Pro, it's normally $50 from MacXDVD.com, but right now they are giving it away for free. So you're able to actually convert stuff from an MOV file or an MP4, whatever else it is, and convert it to any other file type. So if you're trying to get something onto your phone, if you're trying to, even for me, sometimes I need to create these silly SWF files, whatever else it is, you're able to actually do it for free rather than paying the $50. The other thing I want to mention is proxpn.com. It's a VPN service, and there's tons of stuff going around with the NSA. It can be looking at all of our data, whatever else it is. It's really great to actually have a VPN service. Now, ProXPN actually offers a free version that you can use, but they also have their Pro version, which has unlimited bandwidth and a lot of other great features. So what you can do is you can actually get 20% off with the coupon code NTFMAC. That's the letter N for Nancy, TFMAC. And normally at $10 a month, that's what you would pay for your Pro service. But with the 20% off, you can actually get $8 per month, and they also have a 7-day free trial. So definitely give it a try. Go to proxpn.com and use the coupon code NTFMAC. So now we move into our developers section, where we're going to be every week interviewing a developer, either talking about the new operating systems that are coming out and how the developers are planning to integrate with them, or kind of some cool things that developers are doing with the current APIs and how they are really innovating when it comes to applications. So right now, since iOS 7 is in beta, and of course there's the NDA that's associated with it, a lot of the developers that we're going to be speaking with are actually going to be, of course, anonymous. So today, let's just say we're talking with Ben. So Ben, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great. So you have applications that you've been building for iOS 6, and I know that before you've developed other applications for prior iOS operating systems. So how do you see iOS? Well, first of all, let's actually talk about your opinion with iOS 7. So of course, it's a very what they call polarizing operating system. Some people love it, some people hate it. So let's talk about first your opinion of the operating system in general.
I think it's great. I think it gives developers a lot of tools that we didn't have before. Some of the icons are not that great. That's one of the things people don't like, and I personally don't like either.
Yeah. So you see that more of, as a developer, you like it. As somebody who uses the design, and you don't really like the icons, at least.
Yeah, the icons I don't. However, everything else is really great, and Apple's philosophy is pretty amazing. Basically, what they want to do now is focus on the content, and that's it.
Yeah.
During WWDC, one of the main topics was focus on the content. Who cares about ornamentation? That's not really important. What people are using the app for is the content. Whether it's a Reddit client or a Twitter client, people are not really focused on just the ornamentation. They're really focused on the tweets or the comments, whatever. It's just the content is really important. And I think that's the future for iOS 7 and probably beyond.
Yeah. It seems like Apple really explained their vision with iOS 7 really well in the kind of, what do they call it? It's not the State of the Union, is it?
No.
What do they call that?
Usually the sessions were more in-depth, but yeah, it's really just content. You want to focus on content and nothing else.
Yeah, it seems like in their sessions, they really explained iOS 7 better than they really did during WWDC. Of course, they were kind of gearing WWDC's keynote towards consumers and the general public, but I think their explanations that they gave to developers clearly explained their vision for the operating system and where they're really trying to go with it. So let's actually talk about your transition to iOS 7. So you're building a lot of iOS 6 applications right now. Do you see that when iOS 7 comes out, you're going to start using APIs day one, or how do you see your general vision for that transition?
I'll be waiting probably a month and then forcing it down on everyone. Mm-hmm. And I'll of course be checking, okay, are 90% of my users on iOS 7? If it's like 50-50, I may have to wait a little longer, but people will eventually upgrade.
Yeah.
And then when the new iPhone ships, they won't have a choice, so they'll have iOS 7 and that's it.
Yeah.
So I think people will complain at first, and then they'll be saying, oh, these icons are ugly, because I don't think Apple will change them. And then they'll get over it, and then they'll look at their older iPhone and say, this looks very old, because that's one thing I see today. I use my iPhone on iOS 7, and then I use another iPhone, and it just feels old. It doesn't feel modern at all.
Yeah, that's very true. I still have my iPod Touch on iOS 6, and it does feel really old, and it kind of just, as much as I love the stability, it seems like the design is just kind of outdated in general.
Yeah, and not only design, but animations. They add a taste, and not really a taste, but a feeling to the OS, like simple bounces with the notification center. It feels modern. It feels like it's 2013.
Yeah. So when it comes to your transition to iOS 7, do you see where you're going to have any applications that support both iOS 6 and iOS 7 and kind of depend on UIKit or just the developer's tools to accommodate for either situation, or do you want to have control in terms of how it really looks?
I want to have control, but I really want to embrace the new look, because I think if I don't, people will look at my app and say, this looks kind of old, and I don't want to use it. So I think it's a good idea for most developers, or all developers, to embrace it and really just move on and make the best of it.
Yeah. Would you consider actually having two separate applications, one for iOS 6 and one for iOS 7, or do you think that's too complicated, especially for the users?
I think it's too complicated, and it's bad for rankings, because you have two apps, and then if one sells more than the other, one is down in the ranks, one is not, and it just becomes confusing. And then if the iOS 7 users buy the iOS 6 version, it looks old, and then you'll have complaints and a bunch of emails. So I think keeping one app and just moving on is the best choice.
Yeah. Because
it will become confusing, and Apple will probably reject it. Who knows?
That's true. So what is from a developer standpoint, what is your what is most exciting about the new developer tools, or what is the best feature that you see you're able to integrate, or what is really the best part of iOS 7 for you?
I will say the background APIs. I think that gives developers a lot of opportunities to make apps really, really fast, especially news apps or Reddit clients, whatever. If a person likes to, read political news, when they wake up in the morning, everything will be downloaded from, let's say they wake up at 6 in the morning and you want to have them download everything at 5. As soon as they open the app, nothing will be loaded or loading. Everything will be loaded. So I think that's very powerful for a lot of apps, not just news apps, but I think the background APIs are really powerful.
Yeah, so it's the APIs that make it so that rather than you having to wait for data once you open the app, it's stuff that it does it when it notices you're on Wi-Fi or maybe you're charging or something else like that. So it kind of chooses the optimal times, right?
Yeah, that's the way it works. So there's a couple options. One of them are location, and the other ones are when the OS decides to do them. And you don't have 10 minutes like we used to have them before. We have just a couple seconds or a minute at max. And the OS will see when it's best to do it. So when the iPhone is charged and plugged in, that's probably a good time when nothing is really running. So the articles or whatever will download at that time. So the OS chooses when to download the new data.
Mm-hmm. Do you see there's any times that it might be that you're looking at your battery life and it just starts draining, and it's because of all of these backgrounding? Do you think that they really do have it down in terms of how to deal with the optimal times for downloading all this information?
Yes, Apple during the sessions actually talked about this. They actually have a limit to how much times you let users download, because another part of the API is background or silent notifications. Sorry, you can only send a few during the day. So I can probably send 2, maybe 3. If you send 5 or 6, Apple will hold them, and then when it's best to send those notifications, it sends them. So Apple did really think about battery and everything during these background APIs.
Yeah, I think that's one thing with iOS 7 that I have noticed is that I haven't really had to kill apps. Like before, of course, they always said you didn't have to kill apps, but it always seemed to, in some way, even if it's a placebo effect, just killing all your apps in the app tray seemed to really kind of speed up the operating system. But I haven't really had to do with that with the new operating system. So, of course, no applications are really taking care or taking advantage of backgrounding yet. But it seems like they really took advantage of new ways to deal with memory.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Before, closing those apps didn't really do anything. They will in iOS 7. So if they close it, you can't send silent notifications, or you'll send them, but they'll never receive them. So those apps really have to be open.
That's interesting.
So yeah, I don't know how people will. I mean, they'll probably just keep closing them, and that's not good.
Yeah, well, I think that in some sense, maybe they made it more difficult to close applications because they're trying to make it so people don't do it as often.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of people that don't even know that thing exists. So
that's true. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us for this 9to5Mac Happy Hour podcast, and we appreciate it. And we're looking forward to your upcoming apps that we're hearing are coming out soon. Of course, nobody's actually going to know when it's yours, but since you're anonymous. But we definitely look forward to it. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so now we're going to start talking about the iWatch. We have a lot of rumors flying around, and there's a good chance that we might not actually see the device until next year, or there's some rumors that are saying it's going to come out at the end of the year. But Mark has actually published a really awesome article that goes through so many different things about the supposed dream team that Apple is building for the iWatch. So, Mark, how you doing?
Doing well, yourself?
Not too bad. Thanks for joining us here for the podcast today. So, you spent, I know you were talking to me about this article for such a long time that you were kind of pulling all the pieces together to try and figure out who is involved, who is doing what, and really what's going on in Apple right now in terms of building this iWatch. So let's tackle what I was just talking about 2 seconds ago. Do you see this as something that it's going to be coming out at the end of this year, or do you feel like with all of these people and all of this technology and the vision that the company has for the device, is this something that it's not going to come out until the end of next year?
Well, I can tell you that over recent months they've been making some hires in the wearables related space, such as for fitness and medical and sensor purposes. And with these hires happening in the past few months, it's hard to believe that a watch could come out this fall. And it sounds like something that's further down the road, much like the television. On the other hand, they could have had this thing ready to go, and they're just, cleaning it up over the next few months with this new expertise. And of course, they can apply what they're good at to future versions of the product. So, I don't think you can say anything is confirmed for a time frame for such a product from such a company.
Yeah, exactly. I think the biggest question that we've even had on this podcast multiple times before is whether or not the Apple TV will make its debut before the iWatch. So it seems like if this device is going to come out late 2014, that leaves a great gap in terms of time for the Apple TV to really mature and come out with a really strong version that works with the networks or whatever else it is. So do you see, I know it's all speculation, but do you see that happening where it's going to be the Apple TV first and then we move to the iWatch, or is it something that whatever really gets its stuff together first is going to be what's coming out?
It's an interesting question, and I don't even think Apple could tell you the answer. The watch, the ball is really in Apple's court, but with the TV, I'd call it a half and half situation. There's only so much technology that, Apple could develop for it, and there's, the content deals that need to get struck, and that, the ball is in the court of the content makers and the cable providers and all that. So, it's really up to that. And I think the watch can go on Apple's timeline. The TV stuff, it's really limited by their partners.
Yeah. So with the iWatch article that you posted, it seems like Apple is doing a lot in terms of fitness and kind of sensors to figure out your body, or possibly even in the future they could be adding where we're doing sensors that kind of sense around you, so it's kind of self-aware. So do you see that the iWatch would be kind of part fitness, kind of like the Jawbone Up, but at the same time it could be exactly like the Pebble? Like, I see it right now that wristbands that are coming out are either like the Pebble, where they're trying to be pushing out data that's coming in from your phone, or they're trying to be more sensors that are putting data into your phone. So you think that if the iWatch is going to come out, Apple wants to do both of those at once?
So, like I said in my report, Apple's a company that really focuses on integrated experiences, and I don't think they're going to ship something unless it does everything that it wants it to do. And that includes both fitness, working in tandem with an iOS device like an iPhone, and, including sensors. If you listen to comments from the CEO, Tim Cook, it's pretty clear that he believes that the single function devices like the Nike Fuel Band, which he and Bob Mansfield and other Apple executives are fond of, we're told, he thinks those work well. But he did say at the D11 conference that, multi-purpose devices that are smartwatches, they don't really do the trick. They don't really change people's behavior. But based on these hires, people looking to do sensors that can really interact with the body just non-invasively through the skin, fingerprint technology. There's people from the Authentic team working with Apple on the iWatch, and we heard that the iWatch specifically will have some technology based on Authentic. That really could be the complete package. And based on Apple's successes with the iPod, the iPad, and the iPhone, which are very much integrated products that fit into an ecosystem, I think Apple has the past history and the capabilities to make a watch, a smartwatch, whatever they may call it, that is capable of many things, not
That's
just
true.
one thing.
Yeah.
Well,
I think when the original iPhone came out, it seemed very, in a way, futuristic. Just comparing the UI to all of the other devices that were out there,
right.
It seemed so straightforward and simple, and something that we just really never seen before. Now, when it comes to the iWatch, well, first of all, I think everyone is expecting that Apple's next device has to be innovative and a breakthrough. They're expecting that post-Jobs era has to be kind of proven. They need to show that they're able to take all of the technology and liberal arts, the intersection that they always talk about, and really show that they know what they're doing. So it seems like if they're really able to pull off the iWatch and make all of these sensors work and show that all of these other watches and wristbands that are coming out, they're really nothing compared to what the iWatch is. I think if they're able to do that, then it might be one of those things where some people think it's way too futuristic, like, hey, it's looking at my blood, it's looking at my glucose levels, it's really freaky. But other people might see the true futuristic innovation that Apple's working on if they really can pull this off. And it seems like with all of their money, with all of their recruiting that they're doing with these big hires, it seems like they're trying to pull that off.
I mean, just based on what you said, yeah, I agree that, I think they'll pull it off based on their past history and what they're doing now. I can't really gauge consumer reaction to a product that hasn't been launched or even announced, or confirmed for that matter. But I can tell you that, based on past history, if any company is going to do this and fulfill this goal, it's going to be Apple.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be Apple.
Now let's be honest. Will you, from what you've heard, purchase this device?
Yes, I think it's going to be a real game changer, and I've always really been fond of wearables in a way to get my information that I'm looking for closer to me. I've tried the Pebble, but that's really not cutting it.
Yeah.
And Apple's products are just so well integrated to each other, and I'm in an iPad, iPhone, Mac ecosystem, so putting a watch in there would really make sense. Google Glass, I've worn Glass, I'm fond of it. I just think it's a little too much intrusive. But as Tim Cook said, something on the wrist really is like the perfect place.
Yeah,
in my
because you can
opinion,
put it away if you don't need it.
Right. I mean, there's other places in the body where stuff could be put. I did report that Apple had been toying over the last 5 years with other concepts for wearables. How I remember like the old iPod Nano and the current iPod Shuffle and past iPod Shuffle models. You can clip it onto different parts of the body. So we heard that they were developing a wearable iOS device that could clip onto any piece of clothing, put it on your pants, put it in your pocket, put it on your shirt.
That'd be interesting.
Put it on your ear if you want.
Hey, I used to do that with my iPod Shuffle.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
I think the other thing to bring up is the price point. A lot of the wearables that are coming out are usually sub 100 or less than 150. I'm also going to be coming out with a review next week for another one that's actually $60.
Ooh.
Now, that one I can't actually talk about the name of it or anything else like that supposedly, but it's kind of another one that is just like the Jawbone Up, where you don't really get the
there's no display
information. Well, it has a display, but it only shows kind of the time and everything else like that. So
does it get text messages and iMessages?
No. But it's more fitness focused, which is really, that's the whole thing. It's either fitness focused or it's focused on giving you information. It's either giving like input of information or output of information. But when it comes to price point, when Apple came out with the iPad, everyone was expecting it to be like $1,000, $1,200. There were ridiculous price points that people were expecting. And when they came out with $500, that seemed to blow everyone away. They were like, wow, Apple was able to innovate and build all of this technology and push it all the way into a $500 device.
Yeah.
Now, when this iWatch comes out, they're really, I mean, there's so many devices that are sub 100 that obviously with all of this hiring and R&D and technology that's going to be behind it, they're not going to be able to do that. And it's got to be a device that has high margins for them to be able to really justify all of the R&D that they're putting into it. So do you
put it
see
this way,
as something? Yeah.
I take your point seriously, and I really agree with you that, like, the iPad, whatever, they were able to get it at a really nice, cheap price point. But look at the iPhone. The iPhone has actually gotten more expensive since it first came out.
Well, even still, the first one was extremely expensive, and it still took off, so that is a good point.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, the iPhone is $650 now, right, without a contract. I mean, that's the price of the hardware. $650. The original one started at $499. So they've bumped up the price $150. So you know what? The iPad, good price point, sure, but the iPhone is pretty outrageous for a phone. So you have to really think about it. What's going to happen here with the watch price? Clearly Apple's not afraid to price something high if they think it's going to fit the market. The iPad mini, is priced at the top of its class. $329.
Yeah,
so,
but at the same time, the iPhone is the only one that really gets a lot of subsidy.
There's evidence for both.
That's true. Okay. Well, thank you, Mark, for joining us. We really appreciate all the work you put into that iWatch article, and I know you were working really hard to kind of work with your sources and clarify all the information to make sure that was correct or to the best of your knowledge. So we definitely appreciate that, and thank you very much for joining us for this podcast. And
thanks.
Up next,
it was great having. I really enjoy your work on the podcast.
Cool. I appreciate it. This has been another episode of the 9to5Mac Happy Hour podcast, provided to you by 9to5mac.com. Definitely let us know what you think of this new format. You can tweet me at SWB1192, or you can always tweet us at 9to5mac.com. We will be back next Friday with some great content, new segments, new people to interview, and just overall amazing content from the Apple community. Thank you once again, and we'll be back.